Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Week 9 edition of the 2-on-1 Fast Break podcast. I'm Sean Kennedy, joined as always by our NFL handicapper, Dan Erda. Dan, what are your feelings this week? How you doing?
I'm doing all right. I'm going to try to focus on football right now, but we have the Sixers game on in the background, and I tell you, I got a good feeling about this team.
There's no doubt in my mind that they get the double-digit wins this year. And there's a lot of excitement about that, and now obviously they're going to be awful, and I'm going to slog through a lot of 20-point losses this season.
Who's going to win more games, the Eagles or Sixers?
I mean, the Sixers, I said.
You meant the double-digit?
I was dead serious about double-digit wins for the Sixers. I actually predicted on the site, I said 18 is the number.
18?
Yeah.
The Sixers winning 18 games would be like the Cavaliers winning 82 games.
I don't think so.
I know.
82 would be a record. 18 would not be a record.
And there's always bad spots and teams show up flat, so you never know. But either way, it's going to be a long season.
I mean, they weren't even the worst team in the NBA last season. Everybody got on them about tanking and what a ridiculous affront to the league it was. The Bucks were worse than them this season, but nobody even mentions that. I don't understand. But
all right,
we're here to talk NFL.
NFL time.
Unless people want to send us the NBA questions for next week, I'm happy to talk about it. But going with the NFL, unfortunately,
another 0-2 week.
0-2 week is not going to pay the bills. You had Seattle -5. And a late Russell Wilson touchdown pass did give the Seahawks the victory, but unfortunately it was only by 4 as they won 13-9. Dan, the Seahawks just haven't really looked good at all in the last month and a half.
No, it's ridiculous, and I was really, really bitter about this one because they dropped 2 passes that could have been touchdown passes that ended up being field goals. And even at the very end, Cam Newton, the last play was from like his own 2-yard line. And I was screaming for a safety.
You wanted a safety. the meaningless safety in terms of the game action, that would have been a huge biggest swing.
But you know what? Seattle got the win, which is good for my biggest bet of the year, which was the Carolina team total under. But overall, I mean, that doesn't make up for the fact that it was a bad bet and a loss. I still think it could have hit. Marshawn Lynch doesn't drop a touchdown pass. Not even if he drops it, instead of
just having it go through his hands to a defender.
And passing it to a defender. I do think Seattle covers this game 60 times out of 100. But like I said last week, I'm not going to be bitter about it. Right now, I'm fade material. So if you bet against me, you can make some money.
You can either bet against Dan or keep betting with him until the inevitable turnaround, which is sure to come.
It's definitely
one of the 2 options.
I'm going through the phase when Ben Affleck was with J-Lo and put out Daredevil and Pearl Harbor. I'm going through that phase right now.
Was your 0-6 week Gilly?
My 0-6 week was definitely Gilly.
All right. Well, hopefully
I need to reinvent myself.
The better roles are ahead for you. So your other loss last week was the Colts -3.5. That was not nearly as close as that Seattle game, as Pittsburgh hung a 51 spot on Indianapolis, and the Steelers won 51-34. So I just think the Colts defense, after shutting out the Bengals,
What happened?
They missed the plane or something. I don't know what the deal was.
And I understand that you're not going to be in top form every week, but how do you go from a shutout to 51 points against a quarterback that had not even thrown for 300 yards in a game yet this year? He goes for a top 5 all-time game, I think.
If he hadn't let up in the last couple of drives of the game, he could have easily had the all-time yardage record for a game. It's insane. As it was, he was tied for 3rd all-time.
And Indy scored 34. If you told me Indy was going to score 34 and you told me Carolina was going to score 9, I would have made these plays both 10-unit plays.
Yeah, the losing sides in this instance kind of went the script as far as what the teams that lost for you did.
Yeah.
But the other team just was not what you expected. As far as Seattle not scoring at all and the Steelers not getting stopped ever.
And the one thing, I do like to reflect on the plays I make. I feel like if that game happened week 1, I would have taken the Steelers. Because that's such a sharp line, the 3 points. They were begging you for Colts money.
Right.
But I just went through so many weeks of trying to play those sharp lines and losing that eventually I came to the if you can't beat them, join them attitude. And now the game I picked for that, the sharp side hits. So
It's the breaks sometimes, you
Yeah.
know. And I think this is kind of the zigzag theory of betting, where the Colts just look so great the week before against Cincinnati, and then they're almost kind of due for a letdown. They just look so good week in and week out that you can't be that good consistently in the NFL. Eventually, something's going to happen. You're going to have a drop off.
Well, that zigzag theory comes into play with one of my picks this week. In fact, involving that one of those teams.
All right, foreshadowing alert. All right, so
I tend to
there
do
was
it.
one silver lining in Week 8, and that was Miami, which you teased to +4. They took care of Jacksonville with a 27-13 victory, so that closed out your second leg of a 3-team open teaser that you have going.
Yeah.
So that's almost like a win.
Next year, I'm just going to play 3-team 10-point teasers.
Just keep them open throughout the year.
Yeah, like week 1, Jacksonville will be like 12-point dogs to someone, and I'm just going to start like 7 of them with that one leg,
There you
and
go.
then just go throughout the year.
So, but if they lose, that's like a 7-unit loss.
It is.
So something to watch out for. You don't want to put all your eggs in the Jacksonville being terrible basket, because they're going to win a game eventually.
They got their win.
Yeah, it's true. But we're talking about a fresh season.
That's true.
You know,
Second year of Blake Bortles.
Blake Bortles, a year of experience under his belt, sure to take the league by storm.
I'll tell you this much: I think enough of Jacksonville that I'm not putting Cincinnati as the last leg of that teaser this week.
Yeah, that's true. Well, I mean, since these are really banged up,
They're banged up and they're weird.
They are really inconsistent.
On paper, they have a great defense, yet they've been giving up 30 points to teams they shouldn't be. So, on another week, you'd think Cincy -11 at home against Jacksonville. There's your third leg. I'm going to hold off.
All right. So we'll move along to Week 9 action. 3 plays on the docket. You might add a possible 4th later, but we'll discuss that when we come to it.
3 plays on the Darnell docket.
The Darnell docket. Hopefully you can take up similar space in people's bank accounts. So Miami -1 at home against the Chargers is your first play of the week. What are you seeing here that you like the Dolphins?
I can't go. Like last week, I learned my lesson about going away from my thing. And my thing is home dogs or very small home favorites. I love them. I think Miami's a really good team. They're making a push for the playoffs right now. Tannehill's playing well. And San Diego's just really, really banged up. They're a very good team. We've seen them. They beat Denver. Did they beat Denver?
Did San Diego beat them?
Yeah.
No.
They came close. They covered the spread against Denver.
They did, yeah.
Yes. To me, that's what winning is.
Yeah.
But San Diego's very...
I don't know if Mike McCoy would agree.
But they're really banged up on the road, going to the Dolphins, and Miami's just looked very good. I'm very impressed. Tannehill passes the eye test for me. You got Mike Wallace, fantasy zombie Mike Wallace, disappeared last year, playing much better. Lamar Miller, I'm not just going to sit here and list players on the Dolphins. My point is they're playing very well.
They have 53 players.
Yes. And you have a home game against, and there's a statement game for them. New England started off really rough. Now they're playing much better. Miami knows they have to win these games, and they know that they can. They're right in the playoff race, and I like playing teams who I think are good at home under a field goal.
San Diego's they have a lot of injuries right now they're dealing with,
Yes.
and they secretly have an awful defense.
Yes, I'm glad you said that, because that's very true.
They're 27th in defensive DVOA right now, which you would not expect for a team that has 5 wins at this point in the season.
Right.
And Miami secretly has a very solid defense. They're 4th in the NFL in defensive DVOA. So
Cameron Wake just wreaks so much havoc. It doesn't matter if your unit as a whole is great or not. If you're not giving the quarterback any time, the defense is going to come up big and make plays.
Yeah, and the one caveat might be that the Chargers are better equipped to deal with facing a dominant pass rush, because they do a lot of short to intermediate routes, and Rivers is very good at getting the ball away quickly. So that is something to consider, but just the fact that they haven't really had a consistent running game throughout the season, and I think that will set them up in a lot of obvious passing downs where Wake and the rest of that D-line can really pin their ears back and go after Rivers, and I think that will be a problem for them. And as far as the other side of the ball, as you mentioned, the Miami offense, after it was just a month ago or so that they were talking about Tannehill maybe not even being the starter, and he's looked completely revitalized.
It's almost like that woke him up a little bit.
Yeah. I think maybe he was resting on his laurels with his amazingly attractive wife. Not really focusing on football, but yeah, they've looked good. And as we mentioned, the San Diego D has been really poor this season. So I think that's a line that would really be asking casual bettors to be back in the Chargers.
Absolutely, yeah. Because they're the Chargers, and
everybody's seen all the hype about the Phillip Rivers MVP push early in the season, and they did play Denver tough, and they started out with a really good record to begin the season. And Miami's been kind of up and down, and one of their best games was probably over in London, and people just haven't seen a lot of the Dolphins this season, whereas they've comparatively seen more of the Chargers. So
good spot for them, bad spot for San Diego.
And the West to East thing, Chargers flying from the West Coast all down to Florida, so that's for a 1 o'clock game, always something to consider too. All right, so that's the first play, Miami -1. Your second play, Week 9, is a total, and you like the over in the Denver-New England game, and that total is at 55, and that game will be in Foxborough. So, Dan, I think it's no secret both these teams have pretty good offenses, and so I guess you think 55 is a reachable number for them, huh?
Yeah, here's the thing. Tom Brady and Peyton Manning are good. They're both very, very good.
I heard that. It was like an NFL rank special or something. They were going over the top quarterbacks. They were up there.
And just you look at this game, what is this going to be a 2017 game? I don't see how that happens. I don't ever take credit for wins that I don't say on the podcast or tweet out, but last Sunday night I went with the over in the Saints game, Saints and Packers.
I don't believe you.
And it's just crazy. Yeah, I wouldn't because it's a win, so clearly it couldn't have been me. But it's just good offenses right now in the NFL. You put two of them against each other, and it's going to end up in a shootout. It's almost like a pre-written story that plays itself out. And this is going to be one of those games where whoever has the ball in the last 2 minutes is going to have a chance to win the game. Oh, I think it's going to be played in the 30s.
And to add on to what you're talking about, a healthy Gronkowski for the Patriots
it's made them so much better.
It's a completely different offense when he's healthy and able to run those seam routes at full strength and stretch the middle of the field like that, and then he just breaks tackles. I mean, he made Chris Conley look like a middle schooler when he was in the open field last week. Just stiff-armed him into next week. It was crazy. But yeah, with Gronking out left and right, it just opens a lot of things up for them. Brandon LaFell has looked like a competent receiver.
He's been very good, yeah.
He's been a great addition for them. And alongside that, obviously we won a lot of points, and that New England defense has been getting progressively banged up. They lost Gerard Mayo, then they lost Chandler Jones, and they still have a pretty good pass defense with Revis doing Revis things.
Of course.
They have some other guys aside from Jones.
Revis can pick whichever one guy he wants to guard. Good thing Denver still has four others.
The problem is Denver has about four top-notch options they can go to.
And that's the thing. I respect New England's defense a lot. It's actually underrated because people don't think defense. They actually have a great pass defense. I think it's number one in the league. But it doesn't matter because Peyton Manning is so good. Unless you're playing in the Super Bowl, defense doesn't really matter. He'll tear up any.
Unless the refs decide to stop calling legal contact penalties because it's a playoff game and they don't want a lot of whistles.
That's true.
But
it's just going to be a high-scoring game. I don't want to state the obvious. Both offenses are great, and I just think both teams are going to get over 30 here.
One of these times we're going to get you on an under.
That's the craziest thing. I can't imagine playing an under. And don't get me wrong, overs are hitting at a very high percentage this year, but unders hit. It's just so
they hit almost as often as overs.
Almost. But I've seen so many 13-7 games going into the fourth quarter that end up 28-21 that I don't know. I wouldn't be able to handle that.
Yeah, I hear you. But so this week anyway, you like Denver, New England over 55. That's your second play of Week 9.
Yes.
Your third and final confirmed play, as for right now, is the Ravens -1 at Pittsburgh. So we talked a little bit about
Zigzag
and the Steelers, who for all their strengths, they might have as many warts. They're one of the more inconsistent teams in the league.
They blew their load last week, big time. They're going to come up and lay an egg.
Figuratively or like literally with Ben and somebody in a
bathroom stall. Well, if he did that, they might actually have been able to convict him. But
yeah, but Baltimore, they lost to Cincy, but that was pretty much a toss-up game. It could have went either way since he had to convert a 4th and goal just to take the lead, and then that very controversial Steve Smith offensive pass interference penalty that took
which
away
I like the call. That was the right call.
Yeah, I mean, by all accounts, it was the right call, but just to give you an idea of the narrow margin that game really
Absolutely.
was. Like either team could have easily won that game, and it wouldn't have been surprising. And that was a game Cincy absolutely had to have. They were a game behind Baltimore in the division going into the game, and you don't want to lose a tiebreaker to a team in your division that could come into play later down the season. And they just really needed that game at home.
I think Baltimore is well coached enough, and I think they have enough veteran leadership to not lose 2 consecutive division games in back-to-back weeks.
Plus, I just think they're really good.
I agree. They're a good team.
They're still top 10 unit on both sides of the ball. The Jimmy Smith injury is a big deal. That's something that'll hurt them, especially going against Antonio Brown, aka world's best wide receiver and the savior of 2 of my fantasy teams.
They said Antonio Brown actually just draws the defensive attention. Martavius Bryant is the real beast on that offense.
I mean, he's played well, but there's a difference between getting a few rogue touchdowns here.
I'm clearly joking here.
But yeah, Brown has been otherworldly this season. He pretty much does it all, which is pretty amazing for a guy that's not like the Calvin Johnson physique. He still is a red zone threat. He can run any route. He goes outside in the slot. They run those flanker runs with him on occasion. The guy's amazing to watch.
It's amazing how Pittsburgh drafts all these late round wide receivers who become so good. You got him. You had Mike Wallace originally. You had what's his name?
Wheaton is their other guy.
Well, Wheaton's the other guy, but then I was actually thinking of Emmanuel Sanders.
That's true. Yeah. So maybe they're just good at developing wide receiver talent.
So we just talked about how good Pittsburgh is for a while, even though my bet was the Ravens.
But we like Baltimore.
Yeah, it's come back to earth time for Pittsburgh here.
Yeah, I think we can the Steelers' defense is still a bottom 10 unit. We saw Colts put up 34 against them. It wasn't like the Steelers' defense did anything special last week, and it's just a situation where I think we both feel Baltimore's decidedly a better team, and the line is just so low because of how well Pittsburgh played last week.
And each game kind of has a story behind it. Like when you know you're playing the Colts, if you're going to beat them, it's going to be in a shootout. Andrew Luck is not going to not score points. But Baltimore and Pittsburgh, when they play each other, it's almost like they know it's going to be
it's always like a 23-20 game or like 17-14. It's always a drag them out, hard hitting. These teams just hate each other.
A lot of running, yeah. So I'm calling for a 23-20 Baltimore win here.
All right. So that's the third and final confirmed play of Week 9. Again, that's Miami -1, Denver, New England over 55, and Baltimore -1. So you do want to add. You are likely to add the Minnesota game as one of your plays this week. They're at home against Washington, but there's no line out there yet.
As long as Minnesota is
uncertainty around the Redskins quarterback situation, I guess, playing into that.
Well, the Washington announced today that RG3 is going to play.
Okay.
Which I think is the dumbest thing they've ever done. It's putting that coaching staff at such risk. If he were to get hurt,
I think putting him in last season might have been the dumbest thing they ever done.
But that was Shanahan. Shanahan, at least, we know is an idiot. They have a bye the week after. Just let him sit out one more week, then have the bye, and then you want to come back with him, that's fine. But either way, we either have a very rusty RG3 playing or Colt McCoy playing, who, if you were in a coma for the last 15 years and woke up and Monday night was the first football game you saw, I have to tell you, he's actually not that good.
But he's obviously really good whenever he plays in the state of Texas.
That's true. Loves him some Texas.
Yeah. So
he plays like a kid having fun out there.
That's true. I think I heard that. They might have mentioned that. A modern day Brett Favre.
everything but the stats.
Yes. So that might be a play. Make sure to follow Dan on Twitter at Dan Erda. He will post that on his Twitter feed if he ever makes that an official bet.
And I know you're clinging to my words because I've been so good this year.
Yep. You gotta follow him because the turnaround is coming.
It's coming.
I didn't mention your total on the season. It's 11-19.
11-19. That's disgusting.
And not in the new age way.
Yeah, not in the, that was disgusting. No.
Things that are disgusting are really good.
You know, the only thing you can do about it is keep your head high, keep on handicapping the games the way you know, and if it happens like this, it happens.
There's the good thing is there's definitely some regression to the mean coming, and in this instance, it would be a good thing to regress to the mean.
Time to go on a run.
It would be a positive regression to the mean. So
you know what? If you're still following me, God bless you. I appreciate it. I still get some messages Sunday mornings, and I just hope that everything, if despite a bad start, we end the season over 500.
Yeah. So thanks for listening, everybody. Short podcast this week. You know, lot going on, and send us your questions for next week. We'd like to.
Next week we want to talk a little more football.
We want to talk some more football. We had a lot of NBA action last night. We saw Anthony Davis might be the best player in the league. Who knows? And also a really good game between the Spurs and the Mavericks. So definitely send us some NBA questions if you want, and also all those NFL fantasy and gambling questions that might be on your mind. All right, so thanks again for listening, and we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.